This is my review of Homeland, or at least the first 5 episodes of Homeland, which is all I had the patience to sit through. This is part of my television addiction series, in which I talk about the TV shows I watched in 2011 and 2012 when I was living in Cambodia and was watching far too many pirated DVDs. For more on what this series is and why I'm doing this, I'll link to the video in which I describe it in the description down below. But on to Homeland. So, it's been interesting going through these notes I have on all the TV series I watched back in 2011 and 2012, because some of these shows people are still watching now and still talking about now, like Community or Arrested Development, or to a lesser extent Parks and Recreation. I mean, these were shows that were popular when they were on and are still popular and still being talked about now. Actually, that's not true, isn't it? Arrested Development was not actually that popular when it was first aired, but you get my general drift. On the other hand, some of these shows were, at least by my reckoning, my sense of things, were really popular when they were first being aired, but since then they seem to have just fallen by the wayside. Nobody talks about them anymore. Nobody is still watching them anymore. And I guess that is just the nature of television, isn't it? If you go through television history, I think this has always been the case, that you have shows that were really popular back in their day, got good ratings when they were being aired, but then just didn't seem to get remembered afterwards for whatever reason. I think Homeland is one of those shows, right? Everybody was talking about how great it is when it was on. Is anyone still watching it anymore? Homeland was one of those shows that everyone was talking about how great it was when it was on. It was also frequently in the news because of various controversies. When it initially came out, there was anticipation that it would offend conservative types because one of the villains of the first season was a war veteran, like a war hero who had come back to the U.S., a former prisoner of war, and he was I guess this is a minor spoiler, but he was the antagonist for the first couple seasons. And so there was some anticipation that this negative portrayal of a U.S. veteran or U.S. prisoner of war might offend some of the more patriotic, pro-military conservative types. I say there was speculation because, to the best of my knowledge, nobody ever took the bait and got offended by it. But there was some speculation that maybe it would. But then later in the show's run, it got accused of being racist because the Muslim or Middle Eastern characters were all portrayed negatively. I think the criticism was, like, all of the Muslim characters in the show ended up having some sort of ties to terrorism. That's the accusation. I don't know, because I never made it that far. I just watched 5 episodes and then I gave up. So when this show was popular, it was really popular, and everybody at my work was talking about how great it was, and it had a fair amount of buzz on the internet as well. People were really loving this show. The premise behind at least the first season, if you don't remember it, is there was an American prisoner of war who, after being held prisoner in Iraq or Afghanistan or something like that, I don't remember the details, comes back to America as a war hero, and everybody loves him, and he's just this big war hero, and he's getting all these parades and stuff like that. But then there's a CIA agent, Claire Danes, who thinks he may have turned into a terrorist while he was a prisoner of war, and she thinks that he's plotting some big terror attack. So throughout the first season, there's a constant kind of, is he a terrorist, or is this all in Claire Danes' head? And they're playing with that expectation throughout the whole first season, or certainly throughout the first 5 episodes I saw. So you'll have something which will seem to indicate that he is a terrorist, And then you'll have actually something that will seem to indicate that no, he's not a terrorist. This is all in Claire Danes' head, or Claire Danes is getting paranoid about it. It's the whole first season, or at least the 5 episodes I saw, were all like that, playing with that expectation. So I watched this because everyone was talking about how great it is. And I got 5 episodes in and I was just bored with it. And moreover, I was fairly sure I knew where this was going to go. I thought, okay, there's no way we're going to get to the end of the first season and then it's going to turn out that actually there was nothing wrong and it was all in Claire Danes' head after all. And then there was no conflict and the whole thing was imaginary. I thought you couldn't possibly end a season like that. Obviously, he's a terrorist. And I thought, why am I even watching this? Why do I need to watch the rest of this? So I just stopped watching it and went on to Wikipedia to see how season 1 ended and thought, okay, yeah, sure enough, that ended how I thought it was going to end, and just stopped watching. As is often the case, mine is a minority opinion. I've tried to explain to my friends at work why I didn't think the series was interesting, and they all thought I was crazy. So, as always, take my opinion with a grain of salt, or let me know in the comments what a moron I am. And, tell me actually why this show was great, or why the first season was great. It does occur to me, actually, now that I'm going through my notes and all the TV series I watched back in those days, that perhaps I'm reviewing my own attention span as much as I'm reviewing the TV shows, because all the stuff that caters towards short attention spans, like the comedies where there's a lot of jokes, like Community and Arrested Development and Parks and Recreation, I just got hooked on and couldn't stop watching. And the shows that I did stop watching, like Boardwalk Empire and The Walking Dead and Homeland, are shows that started to slow down a little bit and maybe required a different level of engagement. So I've just before filming this video came to that realization that there's a pattern going on here with the shows I've kept watching and the shows I didn't keep watching. So there you go. I suffer from short attention span-itis. So that could be another reason why I didn't care for this show. But I'm given to understand via the buzz that this show got on the internet at the time it was being aired that it went off in all sorts of crazy directions after season 1 and alternated between being really interesting and being outlandish and unrealistic. And it sounds like people had a good time watching it regardless, but I just couldn't stick through with it. And now everyone's pretty much completely forgotten about this show, right? Or I don't know. Do people still talk about it? Are people still watching it? Let me know.